Hello! So here are the solutions to some of these problems, just in case you needed to actually see them worked out. The first three dealt with decimals. So I'm just going to rewrite 25.3 times 2.4. Now whenever we multiply numbers with decimals in them, we're going to multiply like normal. We ignore the decimal points. Notice it actually does look like here that the decimals line up. They don't have to line up. That's just a coincidence here. So I'm going to pretend they're not there, and I'm going to multiply like normal. So I'm going to do 4 times 3, and 4 times 3 is 12. So I'm going to have a 2, carry my 1. 4 times 5 is 20, and then I've got to add that 1 here. So 4 times 5, 20, plus the 1 is 21. Carry my 2 for the tens place. And then I'm going to do 4 times 2, add my 2 to that. So 4 times 2 is 8, 8 plus 2 is 10. Now remember, we need a 0 or an x or however you learn that, because now I'm going to shift over and start in the ones place. Now I'm also going to go through, let's just cross off this 2 and this 1 so that I don't get mixed up. Okay, now 2 times 3. And then I'm going to do 2 times 5, and then I'm going to do 2 times 2. So 2 times 3 is 6. No need for me to carry any digits. 2 times 5 is 10. I'm going to add a 0 there, carry my 1, and then 2 times 2 is 4. Add that 1 now, and that would be 5. Now I'm going to add my digits, so I get a 2, a 7, a 0, and a 6. So now I need to go through, and just to remember that there is 1 digit to the right of the decimal in the first number, 1 digit to the right of the decimal in the second number, so my answer needs to have 2 digits to the right of the decimal point. That means my decimal point needs to be right there, and that would be my final answer. All right, letter B is dealing with addition. So I'm going to now line up my decimal points. 145.76 plus 85.2. Okay, now I can add a 0 here if I want to, but I don't have to. But the biggest problem here, the biggest thing, is making sure that I lined up these two decimal points, this one and this one. Okay, that makes sure all of my place values are lined up. So 6 plus 0 is 6. 7 plus 2 is 9. Bringing down my decimal point. 5 plus 5 is 10, so I'm going to put a 0, carry my 1. 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13, carry that 1, and then 1 and 1 is 2. And that would be my final answer for that problem. All right, last problem. Let's see if I can squeeze it in over here. Whenever I add and subtract, I always must line up my decimal points. So I'm going to do 123.1 minus 35.8. So in this problem, I am going to have to I'm going to have to borrow, because if you notice here, I can't take an 8 from 1, so I'm going to have to go over and borrow some from the 3. So when I do that, I'm going to break that 3 down into 2 and carry 10 over. So now it's going to be 11 minus 8, which is 3. Break down my decimal point. 2 minus 5, well, I can't really do that either, so now I need to go over and break this 2 down. So that's going to become a 1, and now I have 12 minus 5. And 12 minus 5 is 7. And then I've got a 1 left. I can't take 3 from 1, so I'm going to have to borrow over here. That's going to make it 10. Sorry, I'm borrowing from this one. It's going to make that a 11. 11 minus 3 is 8. So my final answer is 87.3. So when I'm adding and subtracting, I must line up my decimal points. Okay, so here I lined up my decimal points. Now in the multiplication problem, it looked as if I lined up my decimal points, but that's not really what we do. Remember, we ignore them and then count how many digits to the right of my decimal, and so then my answer has to have that many digits to the right of the decimal. Okay, let's go on to the next problem. Okay, so these don't have decimal points in them, but these have some negative signs sometimes in them. So going through these really quickly, 8 plus 4, that's just 8 plus 4 like you learned in kindergarten, and that's going to be 12. And then letter B, now I've got 8 plus negative 4. Well, since I'm adding different signs, I'm going to subtract them, which is 4, and I have more positives, so my answer is positive 4. In letter C, I'm subtracting. So whenever I subtract and I see some negatives in there, I'm going to go through and do keep, change, change. So keep the 8, make it a positive or a plus sign, and then I have to change that plus or a negative to a plus. So that's going to end up really just being 8 plus 4, which is 12, just like it was in letter A. Letter D, 8 minus 4, well, that's 8 minus 4, just like you did in kindergarten as well, and that is just 4. E, negative 8 plus negative 4, I am adding, and if I'm adding and they're both the same signs, I'm just going to add them and keep the sign. So I'm adding, getting 12, and keeping it negative 12. The last one, I have a minus, and there's some negatives in there as well, so I'm going to do that keep, change, change again. So keep the negative 8, change subtraction to addition, and change that negative 4 to a positive 4. So now I've got negative 8 plus 4. They're different signs, so I'm going to subtract. And this time I have more negatives, so my answer is negative. All right, so just be careful. These negative signs creep up on you. So just every now and then you need to go back and review what you're going to do when you're subtracting and adding positive and negative numbers. Simplifying fractions is one of those things that we probably haven't taught in a while. But you should really always simplify a fraction anytime you do a problem that ends with a fraction. So what I'm going to do in letter A, 8 and 24, I need to think, okay, so let me look at 8. Does 8 go into 24? And actually it does. And 8 also goes into 8. So I want the biggest number that I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by. In this case, it happens to be 8. So really I'm dividing by a giant 1. In the form of 8s. So 8 divided by 8 is 1, 24 divided by 8 is 3, so that fraction simplified just becomes 1/3. Letter B, between 4 and 10, 4 does not go into 10, so I can't divide them both by 4. However, 2 goes into both 4 and 10, so I could divide by a giant 1 in the form of 2's. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, 10 divided by 2 is 5, and that's as far as we can simplify. Letter C, 5 actually does go into 5 and 15, so I can divide by a giant 1 in the form of 5's. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. That will be that final answer. Letter D, 4 does not go into 18. However, 2 goes into both 18 and 4. So I'm going to divide by a giant 1 in the form of 2's, which would give me 4 divided by 4 is 2. And 18 divided by 2 is 9. So that final answer would be 2/9. Okay, so this problem says Mario has two new spinners to use to pick the vehicle he can use for work. One is divided into equal sections for a sedan, a truck, a van, and a motorcycle, and the other has 3 equal parts for green, blue, or white. And it says make a probability tree, a rectangle, or an organized list to show the combinations. Since there is 2 different things that we're looking at, okay, we're looking at the type of vehicle and the color. Since we only have 2 things, I'm going to make a rectangle because I like using those to help me out. So making my rectangle here, I've got 4 choices for my type of vehicle. I have a sedan, a truck, a van, and a motorcycle. And then I've got 3 choices as far as colors go. We've got white, blue, and green. So using a rectangle when there's only 2 different options is kind of nice. It just helps us organize it better. So I could have a white sedan, a white truck, a white van, or a white motorcycle. Really, I'm just making an organized list, actually. I could also have a blue sedan, a blue truck, a blue van, or a blue motorcycle. And last, I could have a green sedan, a green truck, a green van, or a green motorcycle. So in making my rectangle, I actually just made a list that showed all the different combinations. So now we can answer the questions. Letter A says, how many different combinations are possible? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 possibilities. And then letter B, what is the probability of spinning a white van? So if I go through, I'm going to look for my white vans. Let's see. And I only have one choice here that is a white van. So I've got one choice out of 12 that was for my white van. Okay, that's for letter B, actually. And then letter C, let's do that one in green. Whoa, let's do it down here. Letter C says, what's the probability of spinning a blue sedan? So again, just like the white van, we only have one blue sedan right here, so that would be 1 out of 12 as well. And then letter D, we'll do that in red. Letter D says, what is the probability of spinning a purple truck? Well, there's actually no purple trucks, so that probability is going to be 0 out of 12. And that's it. Okay, so let's talk about the order of operations. Remember, we always have to use the order of operations even if it doesn't say that in the problem, okay? And my order of operations, the first thing we're going to do is parentheses, and then any exponents, and then any multiplication or division, and last we do any addition or subtraction from left to right. Okay, so in letter A, the parentheses there, I need to do that first, and 5 minus 10 is actually negative 5. Careful with that negative. And so then it's going to be 5 times negative 5 divided by 3. Well, 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. And negative 25 divided by 3. Well, 3 goes into 24 8 times, so that would be negative 8, and there would be 1 left over. So that would be negative 8 and 1/3. Letter B, there is parentheses again, so 10 minus 4 is 6. And then we've got a 4 there, so that ends up being 6 minus, and actually I can do that 3 times 5 at the same time. And then it's going to be a divided by 2 over there. So that ends up being 6 minus 15 plus 4 times 6 divided by 2. All this stuff here I need to do before I start adding and subtracting. So 4 times 6 is 24, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. So now I can go back from left to right. 6 minus 15 is negative 9, and negative 9 plus 12 is 3. So that would be that answer. Okay, letter C, again there's parentheses there, but within the parentheses I've got to do that little division symbol. So 15 divided by 5 is 3, and then 5 minus 3. 5 minus 3 is 2, and I've got to square that 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and then it ends up being 13 plus 4, which is 17. Sorry, that's really hard to see. So that answer was 17. And then last, 5 minus 3 is 2, and I'm going to have to square that. So now I've got 15 plus, I can actually do that division there. 36 divided by 4 is 9, minus 2 times 2 is 4. So 15 plus 9 is 24. 24 minus 4 is 20. Okay, this problem said to use the distributive property to simplify and match the expression on the right. Remember the distributive property, I'm going to take the number out front and I need to multiply it by everything inside the parentheses. So 3 times x becomes 3x plus 3 times 4 is 12, and that would be the same thing as letter V. So that would match up with A. And then, actually, let's just do this. No, I'll use a different color. Negative 7 times x plus 2. Well, negative 7 times x is negative 7x. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. And that would end up being letter number 4. Okay, so plus negative 14 is the same thing as minus 14. Letter C, when I distribute there, that would just be 7x plus 14. And that would be letter I. Letter D, x times x is x squared, and then x times 4 is 4x. So that would be the same as 3. And then the last one, 5 times z, would be 5z. 5 times negative 3 would be negative 15, and that would be number 2. Okay, in the last section from this practice that you guys had, you had to simplify the expressions. Notice on the left here, there is an addition sign in between the parentheses. So I really don't need the parentheses. I'm just going to combine like terms. I have a 4x squared on the left, and I do not have any x squareds on the right, so that's just going to be 4x squared. And then I have a plus 2x on the left, and then inside the right is a positive x, so 2x plus x is going to be plus 3x. And then we've got a plus 1 and a minus 8. And so 1 minus 8 is negative 7. And that would be the final answer to that expression. On the right over here, now this one's a little bit trickier because this one you're subtracting everything. So this would be like 3x squared minus 2x squared. So 3x squared minus 2x squared is 1x squared. You don't need the 1 if you don't want to. And then we've got a negative 2x minus 3x. So negative 2x minus 3x is actually minus 5x's. And then we have a 7 minus 1. And 7 minus 1 is a positive 6. And there you go. Hopefully just hearing and seeing what we did helped. Adios.